Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've been working in WWE's production crew for years. I've seen injuries, backstage fights, weird fan encounters, stuff that would make your head spin. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what happened at a live event in Dallas last summer. It was a normal night, the kind that blurs into all the others when you've been doing this job long enough. The crowd was roaring, the superstars were warming up, and the pyros were getting their final test. I was assigned to oversee the locker room entrances, making sure talent got to gorilla position on time, no delays, no screw-ups. That's when I noticed something strange. A wrestler. I won't name him, but if you followed WWE mid-carders in the late 2010s, you'd recognize the name, walked past me toward his locker room. I gave him a nod. He nodded back. Normal. Only, he never came out. His match was in 10 minutes. I checked the monitors, expecting to see him stretching or pacing like they all do before a bout. Nothing. Hey, where the hell is he? The production manager barked through my headset. I'll check. I went to his locker room and knocked. No answer. Knocked harder. Yo man, you're up in 5. Silence. Something felt off. Wrestlers have pre-match rituals, sure. Some need quiet, some psych themselves up in weird ways. But no one just sits there dead silent 5 minutes before their entrance. I pushed open the door. The room was empty, completely untouched. No gear bag, no street clothes, no half-empty water bottles sitting on the bench. It was like no one had been in there at all. I frowned, stepping inside. The air felt wrong, stale somehow, the kind of stillness you get when a room has been locked up for years. But this was his room. I'd seen him walk in, hadn't I? I checked the hallways. Caterers, crew guys, security. No one had seen him leave. That's when the production manager's voice crackled in my earpiece again. Where the hell is he? I didn't know what to say. He's not here. What do you mean he's not there? Did he leave? I don't know. 2 words I've never liked saying in this business. WWE runs on precision, timing. We know everything that happens backstage. We don't lose wrestlers, but we lost him. Security searched the entire arena. Every hallway, every storage closet, every locked room. Check the parking lot. Nothing. No exit footage. No Uber calls. No sightings. He was just gone. And here's where it gets even worse. After the show, I started asking around. Maybe he had an emergency. Maybe he had quit and walked out. Wrestlers disappear all the time, but there's always a reason. I asked one of the older refs, a guy who's been in the business longer than I've been alive. When I mentioned the wrestler's name, he gave me this weird look. That guy, he said slowly, eyes narrowing. He hasn't worked here in years. I laughed, waiting for the punchline. He didn't laugh. You're messing with me, I said. He was booked for tonight's match. I saw him. The ref shook his head. No, man. He was let go in 2019. Haven't seen him since. I felt something cold crawl down my spine. That wasn't right. That couldn't be right. I had just seen him. I checked the rundown sheet. His name was there. His match was scheduled. But when I went to check the roster database the next day, his name was gone. No record of him being booked. No sign of him on the payroll. Nothing. It was like he had never worked for WWE at all. I scoured my phone looking for texts, emails, anything to prove I wasn't crazy. But there were no messages about him, no match notes, no booking confirmations. It was as if he had been wiped out completely. I tried asking around again, but people either shrugged it off or looked at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe you mix him up with someone else, one of the newer guys said. But I didn't. I know what I saw. And here's the part that still keeps me up at night. A few weeks later, I was watching old WWE footage, random matches from past house shows, just background noise while I worked. And then I saw him, same wrestler, same gear, walking to the ring in an event from 2018. I paused. Something about the footage felt off. Then I noticed it. The crowd. They weren't moving. Not a single person. Just a sea of frozen faces, like the entire audience had been paused in time. And in the front row, there was a man, staring directly into the camera, his face blurred, but unmistakably watching me. I slammed my laptop shut. To this day, I don't talk about it much. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was stress, exhaustion, the chaos of the job messing with my head. But some nights, when I'm alone in the arena after an event, I get this feeling, like someone standing just out of sight, just beyond the lights, watching, waiting, and sometimes I swear I hear footsteps. But when I turn around, there's no one there. Story 2. The WWE Performance Center in Orlando is a place built for legends in the making. It's sleek, high-tech, and designed to push you beyond your limits. Everything about it screams modern, from the cryo chambers to the digital training systems. Everything except that damn mirror. It sits in one of the smaller training rooms, room B14, bolted to the far wall like an afterthought. Oh, heavy. It's frame carved with intricate patterns that don't match anything else in the building. Someone once told me it was salvaged from an old wrestling gym that got torn down decades ago. Others say it's been in every WWE training facility since the 80s, moved from building to building like some kind of relic. But what I heard the most, what everyone whispers about in hushed tones, is that if you train alone in that room at night, you might see something you can't explain. I never believed in that kind of crap. Ghost stories, curses, bad omens. I mean, come on, we're professional wrestlers. We take chair shots to the head and get slammed on a concrete for a living. What the hell do we have to be afraid of? So, I ignored the warnings. I wish to God I hadn't. It happened about 6 months ago. I had stayed late for extra drills, determined to sharpen my footwork before an upcoming match. The main training hall was already shut down, the lights dimmed. The only sound came from a janitor mopping somewhere in the distance, the rhythmic swish of water against the floor. I picked room B14 because it was the only one still unlocked. The second I stepped inside, I felt off. The air was thick, like stepping into a room that hadn't been opened in years. And the mirror, it was big, spanning nearly the entire length of the far wall. The glass looked clean, polished, but something about it felt wrong. I chalked it up to exhaustion and started my drills, running the ropes, working on my drop steps. Just me and my reflection, moving in sync, sweat dripping onto the mat. And then it wasn't in sync anymore. At first, it was subtle, a fraction of a second delay. I'd move, and my reflection would follow, just a heartbeat too late. I stopped. So did it. I waved my hand. It waved back. I turned to grab my water bottle, glancing away for no more than 2 seconds. When I looked back, the reflection was smiling. Not a normal smile. Not my smile. It stretched too wide, showing too many teeth. My breath caught in my throat. My face was still neutral. I was sure of it. But my reflection, it grinned like it knew something I didn't. I took a step forward. The reflection didn't. It just stood there, watching. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. A cold sweat trickled down my spine. I raised my arm slowly, and my reflection didn't move. I turned around so fast I nearly lost my balance. I needed to see, was someone behind me? Was this some kind of prank? The room was empty. Just 4 walls, the mat beneath my feet, and that goddamn mirror. I looked back at the glass. The reflection was gone. Not distorted. Not faded. Gone. Just an empty training room staring back at me. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in place. I could hear my pulse thudding in my ears, my breaths coming in shallow gasps. A full-body chill locked up my muscles, like my body had entered survival mode without me realizing it. And then movement from the corner of the mirror. Something darted across the reflection. Not me. Not a trick of the light. Something else was in there. That was all I needed. I grabbed my bag and ran. Didn't stop to change, didn't look back. I was out of that room, out of that building, and in my car before my brain even fully caught up with my body. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that grin. Stretched too wide, eyes too dark, teeth too sharp, like it wasn't me at all. The next day, I asked one of the trainers about it, casually, trying not to sound like a complete idiot. He just gave me this look, a knowing, uneasy kind of look, and then he said something that still makes my skin crawl. You're not the first to see it, and you won't be the last. I don't train at the Performance Center at night anymore. And if you ever find yourself alone in room B14, don't look in the mirror. Story 3. I used to work security for WWE events, stationed at venues all over the country. Madison Square Garden, the Staples Center, the United Center, you name it, I've been there. But there's one place I'll never forget. One arena that still haunts me. The Spectrum Center in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't scare easy. I've broken up fights between drunk fans, chased trespassers out of locker rooms, even had a steel chair thrown at me once by a hot-headed wrestler who mistook me for someone else. But nothing ever shook me like what I saw in that building. It was a house show. Nothing fancy, just a regular night. The event had ended, the crowd was filtering out, and I was making my final rounds, walking the back corridors near the locker rooms. The whole place had that eerie, post-show silence, like the arena itself was catching its breath after hours of screaming fans. Most of the wrestlers were already gone, and the ring crew was busy packing up. Just another night, until I saw him. At first, I barely noticed him. Just another guy in gear, standing at the far end of the dimly lit hallway. He was tall, lean, wearing a faded black and red singlet that looked like it had seen better days. His long, wet hair clung to his face like he'd just come out of a match. He wasn't moving, just standing there. I figured he was some old-timer, maybe a local legend hanging around. lost in thought. That happens sometimes. The business can chew you up and spit you out, and plenty of guys linger in the shadows long after their prime. I gave him a quick nod as I walked past. He didn't nod back, didn't blink, didn't move at all. I felt something in my gut, an instinct that told me something wasn't right. His eyes were wrong. You ever see a mannequin in a store and get that weird, uneasy feeling? Like it's too human, but not human enough? That's what it felt like. A slow, sick feeling crept into my chest. I turned my head for just a second, just a glance toward the ring crew down the hallway. When I looked back, he was gone. Not like he'd turned a corner or stepped into a locker room. Gone. I felt the hair rise on my arms. The hallway was completely empty. No doors opening, no footsteps retreating. Just nothing. My brain scrambled for an explanation. Maybe he ducked into a room so fast I missed it. Maybe he'd walked off while I wasn't paying attention. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. I hurried down the hall, checking doors, peering into empty rooms. I even backtracked, thinking maybe I'd imagined the whole thing. But he wasn't there. I wasn't alone much longer. A road agent, one of the older guys who had been in the business for decades, came walking by. I must have looked rattled, because he stopped and asked, "What's wrong?" I hesitated, then asked, "Did any legends show up tonight? Maybe an old school wrestler? Black and red singlet, long hair." His face changed instantly. The casual look in his eyes froze, like I had just told him something he wasn't ready to hear. "Why?" he asked, his voice quieter than before. "I saw him," I said, "back there near the locker rooms." The road agent just stared at me, his lips pressed into a thin line, and for a second I thought he was going to laugh, call me crazy, but he didn't. Instead, he said something that made my stomach drop. That sounded like Eddie Knox. The name meant nothing to me. I shrugged. "Oh." He hesitated before answering. Eddie was an indie guy back in the early 90s. Had a dark match here in 94. Trying to get signed. His voice lowered. He collapsed in the ring that night. Heart attack. Died before he ever got his shot. I felt a cold chill crawl up my back. "No," I muttered. "No, man. That's not." I stopped myself, because I knew. I had seen someone who wasn't there. After that night, I did some digging. Found an old newspaper article about his death. A grainy photo. He was younger in the picture, but it was him. Same long hair. Same intense eyes. I don't know why I saw him that night. Maybe he was just replaying his last moments, forever stuck in that arena. Maybe he was watching, waiting, or maybe he was never gone at all. I don't work security anymore. Moved on to something else. But sometimes late at night, I think about Eddie Knox, and I wonder how many other lost wrestlers are still out there, trapped in the places where their dreams died, and how many people like me have seen them just for a second before they vanish into the dark.